For cash tags for that, let's bring in our next guest. That's going to be Andy Swan, co-founder at LikeFolio. Andy, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
All right. So, we got you now, Andy. We're talking athletic apparel. I mean, we've hit on this. Nike's earnings at the end of June, kind of reflective that they're not innovating. They've got some competitive pressures. Then you look at On Holdings, you look at Deckers with their Hoka brand. They're actually doing pretty well. On Holdings up 36% this year. What kind of data do you have for us on this shoe company that's, kind of taking market share at this point?
Yeah, everything that we have supports this entire concept that Nike is losing, losing its dominant position, and companies like On Holdings are the ones taking it. There's several reasons for that, I think. On Holdings is essentially, I think, taking a page out of Nike's book that it innovated on in the 80s and early 90s, and that is focusing on the performance of the shoe and building, shoes that have a unique look to them. I think we all remember the Nike Air when that first came out, and you could see the little air bubble in the sole of the shoe. That was very innovative at the time and made a difference in performance. On Holdings has a very, very similar approach, and people really like it. I think, this is a company that has been really disciplined in the way that it creates shoes and creates partnerships. They have a very high quality shoe that people like, and you see that in the LikeFolio sentiment data. On Holdings is at the top of the list by a considerable margin. Nike at the bottom of the list. Nike's kind of lost that performance edge, that aesthetic edge. And like you said, Deckers Hoka brand and On Holdings are the two kind of leading the pack and taking that market share for good reason, because consumers love choice. They love going to the next big thing. And I think On Cloud shoes from On Holdings has proven to be that next big thing. There was a lot of people that thought this was just a fad kind of shoe company that came along. But we've been bullish on this company for a long time, and we see considerable runway into the future. I think they're just getting started at chipping away at Nike's big dominant position.
Andy, what's really interesting about these companies is the fact that On Holdings is kind of taking Nike's game plan, right?
Yeah.
Where they're going after the elite athlete and if you watched Wimbledon, On Holdings was all over the place because of Roger Federer. Two-time winner of the Boston Marathon, running in On Holdings shoes. So they're really doing like a mini version of Nike, and the quality that everyone raves about and the happiness that you talk about showing up in your data is legit. I watched, for some reason, a lot of Wimbledon over the 4th of July weekend. On Holdings was all over. And did you notice some of the details? The player had On Holdings on. His family and staff all had On Holdings on. It was consistent across. But I mean, they're taking Nike's business model and putting it out there with a higher quality, kind of a Lululemon feel to it.
Yeah, exactly right. I think that they've, if you look back at what Nike did, it was Andre Agassi, it was Michael Jordan, it was, putting the product in great athletes' hands, improving the performance through the fact that they would go out and win in that product. On Holdings is doing very much the same thing. I think that the timing, of this company starting to get onto the radar of not just, Wall Street, but just across Main Street as we head into the Summer Olympics in Paris, I think is an unbelievable opportunity, because this is a company that has international ambitions. They're starting to expand internationally. I think they're going to open their second store in Paris during the Olympics. They'll have their shoes on a lot of the highest caliber athletes in the world that, that get zoomed in on, for their 60 seconds or 4 minutes of fame, whatever race or event that they're in. and On Holdings is going to be there to pick up, a lot of market share from that. I just think it speaks to Nike's distractions as much as anything else. I think Nike kind of got away from who they were. And, On Holdings has been there to pick up the pieces, and I think that will continue.
Andy, quick question here, because, On Holdings isn't immune to a slowdown from the consumer, and we've
Right.
seen that across consumer brands, whether it's things you're wearing or a Starbucks that you go get. So they're not immune from it, but because they've done well on earnings, direct to consumer actually grew when Nike's fell. Is that going to help support the stock, according to your data? Because if we do see that continuation of the consumer being finicky on what they're buying, I have a pair of these. They're not cheap
Right.
by any stretch of the imagination. So will that have any impact?
Yeah, I actually think that the headwinds are very real there, that we're talking about the consumer. We talk about it, on this show all the time. I think they're getting a little bit worse even, but not necessarily for the demographic that On Holdings
Right.
is targeting. For the Nike demographic, which is very broad, there is a segment of their customer base that is getting hurt significantly, and it makes part of their customer base much less likely to go out and buy new shoes. I don't think that that's what's happening with On Holdings. It's still definitely a headwind. It still impacts them. But I think if anybody's able to pierce through that headwind, we've seen it time and time again. It's those companies with the higher end income customer with that focus on quality and focus on kind of that luxury niche. And I think On Holdings fits really well into that.
All right, great stuff, great data. As always, Andy, appreciate it.